Hello everyone, welcome to the Learn Languages HD audio podcast. We love to have you with us. Make sure to learn something new today and expand your horizons for a little bit. In this episode, we are going to do something slightly different from usual. I'm going to give you my top 10 movies to watch if you're tired, if you're just about to get on a vacation, or if you're planning Valentine's Day movie night special. I guess that lockdowns worldwide do not leave us with many options for entertainment for these kinds of holidays. So whatever the occasion, I hope that you will make use of some of my suggestions. Also, since we mentioned in our first podcast episode, when we were talking about language learning in general, then we mentioned that watching content in the language of your niche is something that will improve your aspects, all of your skills in that language dramatically. And movies were one of my recommendations. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, make sure to check it after this one. And I hope that I'm sure it will provide you with a lot of useful evidence when it comes to language learning. Anyways, then we have mentioned that watching movies could help you dramatically in improving your skills and how it can do so. You play the movie, hopefully, preferably in the language that you strive to learn, and then you put on the subtitle in the same language. So not your mother tongue subtitle, but on the language that you're trying to improve. So, for instance, all the movies that I will list today would be originally made in English, and you can put on English subtitle for the maximum benefits, because at the same time you can hear the correct pronunciation and you can read it. And that helps you put your grammar into practice. It helps you learn vocabulary quicker because you saw real life applications of the content that was presented. So we advise you to try using different contents when it comes to language learning. Podcast is one of the ideas, but in your free time, you can expand it to the other sources. As well, in this episode, we are going to cover narration and description, but I'm not going to be explaining it in depth because I believe that when your aim of learning a language is to communicate and to expand your circle of friends worldwide, or communication for your business, whatever that it is, people learn language to use it. And that's why I like to embrace this kind of approach. And in this episode, I will be describing my top 10 movies, and you can make use of some of the phrases, expressions in my style of doing it. And maybe in the future, when you're meeting people online through different groups, or when you get in the chance of using that language. Anyways, you can bring those up and be confident starting the conversation yourself. So my number one would be Green Mile with Tom Hanks as the main character. It was created in 1999, and on imbd, which is one of the movie review websites. It's a small digression, but I really want to take a moment to honor them. They give great recommendations and reviews of any possible movie you can think of, more or less. And whenever you don't have any ideas what you should watch and what you should do, I really advise you to take a look into their top 100 movies ever list. I think it's called exactly like that, but you can just type in imbd 100 movies, and they will order it in a descending order from the top to the last one based on the overall grade. People, when they are reviewing a certain movie, they vote and they leave their comments. So that's how they calculate that mark. And most of the movies that I listed here scored very highly So I really do advise you to take a look into their list. So Green Mile earned 8.6, which is quite a lot when you compare it to the others. I don't think they have a clear score 10 at all, but 8.6 is quite successful. It's based on Stephen King novel, and through the flashbacks of an aged narrator, they show how the guards in certain prison in times of Great Depression deal with convicts that are assigned death punishment. And they also show how they react and how they deal with one special convict that has very special gift. So I'm not going to tell you anything more than that about the plot, because everything more than this would be a spoiler. But although the cover itself, and just when you see the plot, when you see what it is about, may be a little bit, may push you away from the movie. And me first, when I watched the trailer and when I saw what it is about, I wasn't really going to watch it, because it didn't really sound relaxing to me. However, it turned out to be one of the best experiences, like one of the best movie experiences ever. So I do advise you, and it is not scary as it seems, and is not as hard as it seems. It does have certain moral message, and I believe it's going to be a valuable experience to you too. Second one of my list would be Lord of the Rings. So very classic thing. It's a film series of 3 fantasy adventure films, and it's directed by Peter Jackson. But it's based on a novel that was written by Tolkien, who I believe was a master of science fiction writing, fantasy writing. The films are called The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and Return of the King. So in that order, The Fellowship of the Ring, filmed in 2001, the first one. Second is The Two Towers, filmed in 2002. And then we have The Return of the King, 2003. Each of the movies last about a little bit less or more than 3 hours. There we meet a hobbit from the land of Shire, the Hobbiton, and his 8 companions. They set out to a special journey where they aim to destroy a very powerful piece of jewelry, one ring, and they aim to save their world from the dark power that is ruling it at the moment. Many people compare this one to the Harry Potter, and categorize it as a movie for children, but for me, it was definitely not only for me, but for a lot of people out there who review it as a masterpiece. I think it's a win-win combination if you have maybe teens, or if you want to watch it with your kids, but also I think it's an evergreen thing and that everyone can make use of it. It does teach you many life lessons, a lot of moral stories, a lot of ethical stories. So I think that you should give it a try no matter what age you are. Number 3 on the list, and however, none of these movies, I didn't make this list in my order of preference. So the first one was not the best one, and vice versa. So I think it was just in the order they were lined on my mind when I was making the list. But The Shawshank Redemption is definitely the favorite on imbd, with the highest rate there. It's 9 point something, so 9.3 or 4. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that it's the first one, the top one on imbd review list. And there we have 2 imprisoned men who bond over a number of years. And here I'm quoting imbd, they are fighting solace and eventual redemption through the acts of common decency. So I think this describes it the best, and I didn't want to paraphrase it. I think this quote was quite suitable. It's directed by Frank Deborant, and it's also written based on Stephen King's short story, Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. And the stars of the movie are Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman, so it definitely has amazing cast. It's a prison drama from 1994, and the whole story goes around the prison life of Andrew Dufresne after he was sentenced for the murder of his wife and of her lover. Fun fact is that this movie did not make a huge amount of money and profit, but it's still listed as one of the best movies of all time on most of the movie reviews lists, and it earned amazing critics and remained significant part of the pop culture. I did mention Live Lessons before, but I think this one is the best teacher among the movies I have ever seen. So there is something special in this story, and there is something extremely powerful and beautiful for which I advise everyone to give it a shot. Next one on my list would be something that could be titled as and described as romance, or maybe even drama. Yeah, drama, romance, and biography in parts. It's called Eat, Pray, Love, and it's an American movie that was filmed in 2010 with Julia Roberts as the main character. This movie is based on the book with the same title, the memoir of Elizabeth Gilbert, in which she described herself leaving her husband and a couple of exotic trips around the world where she was aiming to find herself. The main character, Liz Gilbert, had an amazing life that maybe every single woman around the world would imagine for herself. She had a handsome husband, a big house, successful career, but she felt lost and she felt unsuccessful, unfulfilled. But what made her different is that she still believed that it's not the end and that she can start over and find what makes her truly happy. And that's why he asked for a divorce and sets out on an amazing trip with 3 crucial destinations, and in each of the stops on her trip, she purifies a certain area of her life. My number 5 would be Interstellar. It is made in 2014, and it is really epic science fiction film that was directed and produced by Christopher Nolan. So this name itself tells you a lot. But although I loved most of his movies, Interstellar strikes to me as one of the most memorable. The story is set in dystopian future, and there we have our civilization and our planet struggling to survive. So basically, people are getting sick. They have lung problems from the extremely polluted air. Their crops cannot grow anymore. And that's why the scientists of the time predict that life on Earth is coming to an end and sets an amazing crew to a trip to space to find the source of life somewhere else and to try to save their children and to save their planet. One thing that was exciting for me and that was interesting is the purpose of time and the relativity of time that is shown in the movie. So all the wonders. So imagine how difficult it was to create a movie that would have all the special effects and that would recreate the space, the trip to space, and all the wonders of physics and of the world of Earth. So definitely give it a try, whether or not you're a fan of sci-fi. I think it still has a lot to offer to anyone who is willing to give it a shot. The next one on my list would be The 12 Angry Men. And it's filmed in 1957, and it's American court drama film. So everything happens in one room, and everything is based on the conversation between people. So there are no light effects, very few sound effects. There is no real action, but it still is very successful in keeping your attention on point the whole time. And it's not even long. It's, I think, over 1 hour and a half, something like that. So this film tells the story of a jury of 12 men who are set to decide whether or not to deliberate 18-year-old defendant. There are doubts, reasonable doubts, but this case forces juries to really re-examine their morals and their values and beliefs. This is a story about conflict, story about values, story about opinions, and story about living your life up to your priorities. It is selected to be the second best courtroom drama ever, right after To Kill a Mockingbird. The next one on my list would be Good Will Hunting, filmed in 1997, and it's an American drama film with Robin Williams, Matt Damon, and many others. It follows the story of the 20-year-old South Boston janitor, Will Hunting, and he is a genius that still has not recognized himself and that still did not get recognized by the world. As Will starts seeing the therapist, he has to reevaluate his relationships and has to face significant task of confronting his past and has to start thinking about the future. It also won 2 Oscars, Best Supporting Actor for Williams and Best Original Screenplay. The next one on my list would be Beautiful Mind, which was filmed in 2001, and it's American biographical drama film. It's based on the life of a renowned mathematician, John Nash, who received Nobel Prize in economics, and his discoveries transformed the way economics works. I don't really want to spoil this one to you, but biographies and documentaries are my favorite genres. And I think I've seen quite a lot of them. But this one, although I've seen it recently, did make certain impression on me. And it shows the difficult and troubling path one has to go through in order to succeed and in order to become the greatest. It has beautiful message, beautiful story, and it is really inspiring at times, but other than that, it's quite educational and informative. The next one on my list is Shutter Island, which is 2010 American psychological thriller, and it was starred Leonardo DiCaprio. This one has quite of a dark setting, but it also keeps your attention to the fullest, and you also start to get into your own psychology at times. So it shows the unclear border between truth and between lie, between crazy and not crazy, and it shows the relativity of our moments and of our lifetime. So definitely one of the most unique things I've ever seen, and I advise you to give it a shot. And last but not least is Love, Rosie, my favorite romantic comedy drama. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against romantic movies and romantic dramas, but I've seen quite a lot of them in my life, and most of them did have similar plot twists, similar stories, similar beginnings and endings, and Love, Rosie is one of those that is quite different from the usual pattern. It talks about 2 friends, and they are friends as long as they can remember, but they start to fall in love with each other, and the story follows how their life evolves and what love has to do with all of that, and what are the sacrifices that one must make for those that he loves. So I did list a little bit of everything for everyone, so I hope that you can find yourself in some of these stories and that you will give these a shot. Whether you like them or not, I really believe that you're not going to regret watching them, because all of these are classics and really remain heavy in our pop culture. So for the sake of information only, it would be worth watching them, but I also believe you will find them enjoyable. Thank you for being with us. Make sure to keep learning, keep growing, and we hope to see you in another week's episode. There are more interesting things yet to come. Bye bye.